What is prayer? Prayer is a deep aspiration that wells from the profoundest depths of your heart towards the divine. It is a cry for help. That the human being calls, and that call reaches the supreme force, the supreme being. And in answer to that, there is a response. True prayer is spontaneous, ardent, sincere, and calls in all humility, like a child surrendering and knowing that it doesn't know enough, cannot do enough, and needs the intervention of the supreme grace. There is a difference between prayer and meditation. Meditation is a process that begins with the mind concentrating on something, dwelling on some idea, some experience, a state of being. Meditation is the drawing in of the mind and a quietening and intense concentration of the mind on anything. Prayer comes from the heart. It is a call to the Supreme from the depths of your heart. Some of us sit down in prayer and meditation and can meditate and pray for hours. However, true prayer is not mechanical. When one becomes mechanical in one's movements, in one's call, then prayer stops. So one must distinguish and build up the muscles of the heart and mind. There are always going to be lapses, moments of intensity in prayer, and then moments of quietness and indrawn contemplation. That is natural. Are prayers heard? Yes. On the intensity of your prayer will depend the intensity of the response. Are all prayers answered? No. If all prayers were answered, that every person was praying for every moment, the world would be in a disorderly state. There would be total confusion, contradictions, and disorder. There is a movement and a process. It is slow, and it has within it and behind it the supreme will. However, if your prayer is pure and sincere, disinterested and noble, sooner or later you will get a response. If your prayer is just, oh, I want this, Then after half an hour you've changed what you want, and a new desire comes up in your mind. You say, no, no, I don't want this anymore. Now I want this. Then 6 months later, you've forgotten about your last prayer, and there it is in front of you. It comes to you and you say, hey, when did I ask for that? I don't want that. So that is why there is a supreme wisdom, and that knows and can distinguish between sincere prayers and those that are based on vital or mental desires. However, if you need something, the best attitude is to pray and say after that, I do not know if this is what is best for me. Let my prayer be granted only if it is in accordance with your will. Sometimes we pray for something and it may not be the best thing that happens. It may not be the best prayer because we pray from our ordinary consciousness, which is ignorant. That is why always at the end of each prayer, always add, let thy will be done and not mine. That way you're safe. You're protected from your own prayer, which may come out of ignorance. Now, how important is faith in prayer? It is difficult to pray if one does not have faith. But if one can make prayer a means of increasing one's faith, or aspiring, having an intense aspiration to have faith, then prayer can be a great way of increasing and deepening one's faith and trust. Faith and trust in oneself, faith and trust in one's destiny, faith and trust in life, faith and trust in the divine protection and power. So what are the different types of prayers and aspirations? Here, the Mother distinguishes. There are some prayers that are purely mechanical. They are purely material in nature, with words which have been learnt and are mechanically repeated, like you have a japa or a mantra or a specific prayer that you keep repeating. And you keep mechanically repeating that. That is one form of prayer. However, that kind of prayer does not signify and bring too much. It does not have as much value. What value it has is that it quietens the mind. It quietens the consciousness. So if you want to, sometimes if you're agitated, and you want to quieten yourself, and if you're upset and you want to quieten your mind, and you want to be in a state of equipoise, then that kind of mechanical prayer, mantra, helps. But if one wants to reach up to the divine source and get a response for one's prayer, then the prayer has to change. There is a second kind of prayer, which is called a spontaneous prayer. That prayer comes straight from the heart without thinking, without formulation. The words automatically well up into your heart, like a spontaneous thing that comes forth from you, intense and straight and frank and simple. That prayer has much greater intensity and power and will draw an immediate result. There is a point where aspiration and prayer meet. For there are prayers which are the spontaneous formulation of a lived experience. These spring up already from within the being, like something that's the expression of a profound experience, and which offers thanksgiving for that experience, or asks its continuation, or asks for its explanation also. There is a question that someone puts to the mother. Mother, when one prays sincerely for the intervention of the grace, doesn't one expect a particular result? When one prays sincerely for the intervention of grace, doesn't one have an expectation for a particular kind of result? Mother answers, that depends on the tenor of the prayer, how you pray. If one simply invokes the grace or the divine and puts oneself in his hands, one does not expect a particular result. To expect a particular result, one must formulate one's prayer, must ask for something. If you have only a great aspiration for the divine grace and evoke it, implore it, without asking it for anything precise, it is the grace which will choose what it will do for you, not you. So this is a very deep and profound secret that here is being revealed. If you pray without asking for something specific, but you pray for the divine grace and you implore the grace to intervene in your life or in the events or in anything, then the grace will decide what is the right thing that should come down to you. However, if you have something specific that you want, the mother says, it is better to ask for it. So, but still, she says, if one wants something precise, for example, you want that you are free of mental disturbance and your mind becomes clear and your emotions become quiet, then you ask for that precisely. But still, if one wants something precise, it is better to formulate it then. If one has a special reason for invoking the grace, it is better to formulate it precisely and clearly. So if one wants to deepen one's, for example, teaching, that you ask the divine that before in the morning that please deepen the way I think, deepen my method of teaching, how I teach and what I teach, then it is better to ask for it precisely, if that is what you are aiming for. However, you may also make a general prayer where you ask for the intervention of grace and the divine in your daily life and work. So both prayers are equally important and each has a different result. One, the first, allows the grace to decide what you want and what is the best for you. The second, if you have an aspiration to achieve something, to do something, to be something, to change your consciousness, to work on a particular problem that you're facing, then it is better to articulate that precisely, formulate it, and then ask for help. You understand? And finally, there is the prayer that is for collective, a collective prayer for a collective result, for a collective progress. How does one use prayer, and is prayer powerful for a collectivity, like a group of people, like a center, like a gathering that prays? Here again the Mother has given many examples of how when people gather together and pray for the well-being, suppose somebody is unwell, is extremely unwell and is about to die. She said there have been many cases of miracles where collective prayers help that person to gain back her or his strength, gain back that and have the intervention of grace come in. So collective prayer is useful for praying for someone, for praying for the progress of one's organization, for praying for harmony within the group. For example, if there is a lack of harmony, lack of understanding in the group, and a lot of noise, then prayer can help with that. Suppose, like we do in the Gnostic Center, whenever we have an event that comes, the 28th of March, or any big event, what do? We sit together, we meditate, and we pray. We invoke the grace to help the event to go on smoothly. So prayer can be used as a very powerful method in a collective being. And many great things have been achieved by prayer. So here I'll read a few words on how collective meditation and prayer works. What may be called a collective meditation is a group of people who gather together for a definite purpose. For example, in all ages, it has been a practice to gather for prayers. There are different kinds of collective prayer. There is the anonymous mass, the crowd, formed by chance, circumstances, without any inner coordination, impelled by the force of circumstances, as for instance when a king or a person who attracts public attention is in a critical situation, either ill or the victim of an accident, and the people gather to obtain news and also to express their feelings, and through chance circumstances people have collected there. That is, there is no inner link except that of the same emotion or interest. That is one kind of collective prayer, and they pray to ask for the recovery of someone in whom they were specially interested. Then there is the collectivity formed by individuals who have gathered together around an ideal or a teaching or an action they want to carry out, and who have an organizing link between them, the link of the same purpose, the same will, and the same faith. These can gather in a methodical manner to practice common prayer and meditation. And if their aim is high, their organization good, their ideal powerful, through their prayers or meditations, these groups can have a considerable effect on world events or on their own inner development and collective progress. So, a collectivity that is formed consciously and invokes can even have a great effect on world events, and especially on their own collective progress and collective action. More things are wrought by prayer than man can think. These words have a deep, profound meaning. The great power of prayer. It is a way of linking the human consciousness to the divine. Can prayer change one's destiny? Yes, the mother says that prayers can change one's destiny if the prayer is sufficiently intense and deeply born, and there is a deep inner trust and faith behind the prayer. Your whole life can be changed. So let us end with a prayer. This is Radha's prayer, a very powerful and simple prayer. O thou who art the Lord of my being and my God, receive my offering. Thine are all my thoughts, all my feelings, all my emotions, all my sensations, all the movements of my being, each cell of my body, each drop of my blood. I am absolutely and altogether thine, thine without reserve. What thou wilt of me, that I shall be. Whether thou choosest for me life or death, happiness or sorrow, pleasure or suffering, all that comes to me from thee shall be to me a gift divine, shall be to me a gift divine, bringing with it the supreme felicity. Let us join together collectively and pray for the intervention of the supreme grace in India and the world, to remove the adverse forces and to bring in light and to make India strong and quickly back on her feet.